Epstein, here's, honey, everybody, a million fouls. There are no indictments, no arrests. And I asked you this earlier, so I'm going to ask you again. Why are there no indictments? Why are there no arrests?
Because nobody's had a chance to go through these things. And the other point is that the main person they'd like to talk to is probably Epstein, but he's dead. And as far as it's concerned, relative to him, the whole indictment process has been, quote, abated by death, unquote. So that's what they would enter into the record as to him. So any leads that they get are going to require that they go out and talk to the people, which means on the ground work. The people may say, oh, yeah, sure, I'll cooperate. Or they may say, I take the fifth. And they'll have to lead, and people may risk making a false statement to a federal official, which is a crime under American law, not making it a false statement to a state official, but to a federal one. Yeah, it is. And it takes a bit to read 1 million pages, which is what a judge has ordered released, which I think is premature at this point, considering it may tip off suspects. It may be something that looks innocuous, but somebody that is really culpable for felonious behavior may say, oh, I need to make sure they don't find this. And it's just yielding to this palpable, sordid curiosity in nastiness, and inquiring minds want to know, but the problem is that the wheels of justice turn slowly and supposedly grind fine. So just imagine reading 1 million pages and how many folk that would tie up in an investigative staff, which they don't have and probably need to be devoting themselves to more urgent criminality. But it'll take a while, and usually when you rush to judgment, that's Johnny Cochran's thing when he was talking about the OJ case, you get miscarriages of justice, and you get what fortunately were the cases with Tish, she wishes, who had a tech escape temporarily from the consequences of her alleged wrongdoing, and some other folk. And you looked at what happened in Georgia with the Trump crowd getting indicted with lawfare. You see, they rush into it and they don't really have a case. They just want everybody to be broke, inconvenienced, and otherwise incapacitated so they can't resist the attacks on them, or also to discredit them so nobody listens, which in a lot of instances has backfired. And that's what you have. You have Waltz on down in Minnesota talking about they need to get rid of ICE, I guess, so there's no pressure on the Somali crew that is implicated, because if you back off the Somali crew, there'll be less incentive for somebody in that crew to finger somebody else out there saying, hey, they got some of it too. We gave them some under the table. See, that's how you use people in high places. They used to say it, the mob bought the judges and the police and the elected officials. Now it's not the mob, it's a cult buys the officials. Or let's put it this way, they let the officials do the stealing. So
now, I did ask you, well, you said that they would need proof. And I said, well, what about the women victims? So the women, the multiple women, they did, this says, yes, multiple women who were victims of Jeffrey Epstein have provided legal depositions, sworn statements, and testimony as part of the various civil lawsuits, criminal investigations, and subsequent unsealing of court documents.
They don't care. Epstein is dead. The charges against Epstein have been abated by his death. The woman that was her accessory has been convicted and is being punished. Anybody else who might be brought into this any lessons to be learned in terms of corruption, widespread deviancy, foreign policy, diplomatic, intelligence gathering efforts, or whatever it may be, international trafficking is another matter. Those are the only things that justify the time and expense. And those things take time to get into.
So you have Prince Andrew, and there are women that are literally accusing him, and I guess it was underage. He was stripped of all of his royal titles. Now you have Bill Gates.
Well, Andrew had been having problems with the royal family, his relatives, for the longest time anyway.
I mean, okay, but
so what?
No, but the thing, I'm talking about criminal charges. So also Bill Gates, these are names, and you may have evidence, and then you have the women sworn testimony. Here's where I'm going.
That doesn't do anything about bringing in other people. That's only to Epstein. See, in other words, they filed lawsuits. Who did they file them against? His estate? Maybe, if it survives his death, which in a lot of states it won't. Are they accusing other people of it? That's a pending matter. You don't want to get in there and get the weird situation, which wound up, we saw with Dr. Cosby. In other words, there was a civil suit, and then there was a potential criminal action. The district attorney said, we investigated, there's nothing to this case. So then you had Cosby compelled to give depositions in the civil case, which wound up getting him in jail for quite a few months when he wasn't even supposed to be prosecuted. And the appellate court for Pennsylvania said, hey, this is a horrendous miscarriage of justice. It's out of here. So you don't want that kind of thing picked up on a larger scale. If you have something that would lead to independent folks' criminal prosecution, then put your case together and stop worrying about entertaining this vacuous-minded public that doesn't have any real business.
Well, who will put the case together?
The prosecutorial authorities. It's in the hands of the federal government.
So what happens to the federal government? The DOJ?
The DOJ has as its main investigative instrument the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is part of the Department of Justice. It is a newly created organization, a 100-year-old organization. It displaced the Secret Service, which Abraham Lincoln formed to investigate Confederates and counterfeiting of Union money. And it displaced U.S. Marshal Service in terms of being the chief investigative agency of the U.S. government. There are additional ones that deal with national security problems, military matters, and stuff like that. But the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, is charged under American law with being the investigative arm of the Department of Justice.
So here's my question, because it's Black History Month.
Where did the FBI come from? They were after a first world black heavyweight champion, Jack Johnson.
That's not where I'm going. No. I'm sticking on the Epstein, but because it's Black History, I'm bringing race into it because you mentioned Bill Cosby, right? I also want to mention Diddy. Now, all of a sudden, in these Epstein files, they want to throw Jay-Z name in there. You see this here, honey.
Yeah, and they've got the Clintons in there and all the rest of it.
So you go after him. You're involving her, and she will not be dragged in this bullshit, because that's exactly what it is. Leave her alone, and by leaving her alone, meaning
who are you talking about?
Jay-Z alone. This Jay-Z is her husband.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Jay-Z, her husband. Jay-Z is a rapper, and he's in the Epstein file.
I know who that is, but I mean, who is it you leave alone?
Leave Jay-Z alone, because if they're bothering Jay-Z, they're bothering Beyonce.
You're not above the law. I don't care who you are. But I know you are a fan of hers, but you know.
But not be tainted because he alleged
she picked him, she took him home. Now
listen. So
it wouldn't be the first bad choice, somebody who is a celebrity and is in an isolated position. It's hard to meet folk when you're a celebrity. And it's hard to meet folk you can trust because everybody's out to try and gold dig.
Well, because so now Jay-Z name is in it. Harvey Weinstein, another
I
rapper.
don't care about Jay-Z. I mean, if you got something, go find it.
Right.
And stop worrying about public opinion being so curious that with their inquiring minds wanting to see some tabloid nonsense. Go find out what you have and do a thorough investigation. Because somebody like me, a smart defense lawyer, come along and tear it up anyway, and you wasted the money.
Diddy is locked up, and he was nowhere near Epstein.
No, he's not.
So
I don't know.
also,
Don't care.
also, when Diddy homes were raided and they took all those tapes out.
Interestingly enough, they didn't raid all his homes. He had two mansions on the same lot down in Florida. They only raided one of them. They didn't raid the other one, and they raided the other one, another one out in California.
Here's where I'm going. I want to know what's on those Diddy tapes, because I think a lot of people on the Diddy tapes are probably on that Epstein files as well. However, this is like apple pie for the Trump administration it's not going to be any criminal investigations unless they want to use it against their adversaries. And I think that's and then the next administration is going to use these files and the Diddy tapes to use against their adversaries, whether it's Democrat or Republican. This is just
you embarrass somebody and say, hey, it's a low down freak you got in office. Didn't you know that?
So it's not about justice. It is about how can I obtain power over my adversary.
That's what it's about.
So I'm going to use these files, the FBI. I'm going to use the Diddy tapes and wherever else, and we're only going to bring out a select few when we need it for our own personal use.
That's the name of the game. And you also have to trod that pathway down the middle that says, hey, we're trying to implement justice. And we can phrase it in a whole bunch of ways. And if we can contrive to phrase it so it looks like it promotes justice, more power to us. That's how humans operate. You see, you have the saints, and they do things for different kind of reasons if they're a real saint, which most of them aren't. And then you have ordinary people. And then you are always having folk run games because the whole game is what? Procreation. Every time you see a human, you see a successful screw. So that's how we get generation after generation after generation. And it's about food, clothing, and shelter. And sometimes acquiring those three things is dangerous or it's hard. And people seek advantage in the process, and then everybody's not fit to lead. They're not all alpha males and females. They're a whole bunch of betas and a whole bunch of omegas all the way at the end. So some people lead, some people don't. And the ones that lead, they fight to lead, but they're supposed to be the ones that take the heat if it all hits the fan.
But here's my problem now. Why is it a lot of times that these deviant individuals that are caught up, whether they're on tapes or in files or whatever, but the person they choose to hang publicly and criminally is always black?
Not always black. So what they did with Bill Clinton.
Okay, Bill Clinton, he has not been arrested yet.
No, I'm talking about what they did to him back in the 90s.
With the Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah, and she wanted to do it. I actually talked to the woman and her mama and her daddy, and they told me face to face that Mama and Monica had a contest to see who could have sex with the most important individual. It was Linda Tripp, allegedly, alleged lesbian that nobody knew about, who decided to get this evil, masculine guy and make an example of him. And she told and recorded the conversation, which started the whole mess. So, yeah. And by the way, I had a Polaroid picture. This has been, 1998 when this was going down. And in the Polaroid picture, Daddy had a bumper sticker on the back of his Mercedes that said, "My daughter sucked the president." He actually had that on his car.
I mean, that is a flex, but it was a lot of scrutiny that came with that. However,
Yeah, I know.
well, listen, Bill Gates. I think the Epstein files is an embarrassment tactic because Bill Gates allegedly it's in the files that he got some pills for STD that he caught from a Russian hooker and tried and wanted to
Yeah, all of that is salacious, but it
know
doesn't have
his
anything to do
ex-wife
with
in it.
justice.
Yeah. Jay-Z, Harvey Weinstein, and Pusha, whoever, P Pusha, they were watching someone doing something and
Yeah, freaks. You see, a lot of these people in power are freaks. And by the way,
so here's the thing.
which monkey gets most of the monkey nookie? It's the alpha monkey. The leader gets more nookie than any other
I
monkey.
don't think this just because you're a freak don't mean you alpha. My thing is why the freaks are the ones getting elected? That's
Because that's one of
they're
the
getting
perks.
funded.
See, look, they're groupies. They're groupies behind singers, athletes,
And they can
entertainers,
control.
actors, and behind politicians. You want to see some of the most promiscuous groupies going? Get involved in a political election and watch what happens around the big campaign office. There are plenty of groupies there. That goes with the territory. The head monkey gets most of the monkey nookie. That's the way it works. And it's you don't want to catch up innocent people and ruin reputations. But if you want to see what it's all about just on your own, look up Mata Hari.
Okay.
Look her up. It was a World War I thing. She was a sex queen and everybody wanted to be with her. And that wound up being American diplomatic officials, French diplomatic officials, English diplomatic officials, German diplomatic officials, and this chick was running apparently an intelligence network all through Europe during World War I, and they wound up catching her. But in those days, they didn't bring Lord so and so in, Sir whatever, or this particular French baron in. They just put her on a wall and shot her.
Damn. That's the end of that. All right.
That's what they do in China, which is why they have so few of these situationals. Put him on the wall. Let's see if you can have good target practice.